Today we are going to be thinking about verbs. What about verbs? Let's begin with a simple sentence describing the dog. Rover seems happy. The verb seems tells about Rover's condition or state. Verbs that describe condition are usually called state of being verbs. You can usually substitute some form of the verb seem for them. Let's try another sentence. Rover wags his tail. Wags is the verb. It is not a state of being verb. You couldn't substitute seems for wags. Rover seems his tail. No, wags tells what Rover does. It describes his action. So we have verbs which show action, and we have verbs which show state of being. The tower is in the clouds. Is, used as a being verb. The birds sound gay today. Sound, used as a being verb. The boat steams into the river. Steams, used as an action verb. It comes to the bridge, action verb. Bars drop, action verb. Cars stop, action verb. The bridge rises, action verb. The boat chugs on, action verb. Action or state of being, two basic things that verbs show. Now, verbs can be divided into transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. In describing what Rover is doing, we could say, Rover chews a bone. In this sentence, choose is used transitively. It shows that something, bone, receives an action. We could say merely what Rover does. Rover chews. In this sentence, nothing receives the action of the verb choose, so we say it is used intransitively. We say an action verb is used transitively if the sentence includes a receiver of the action. We say an action verb is used intransitively if the sentence does not include a receiver of the action.
La 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 la, la 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 la.
Every verb has a certain voice.
La 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 la. La 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 la.
Well, not exactly that kind of voice. We speak of verbs as being in either the active voice or the passive voice. Let's see what these mean. All ready, Rover? Rover carries a bucket. The subject, Rover, acts. He carries. So this is the active voice of the verb. Once more, Rover. This time we will say it with the verb in the passive voice. The subject won't act. No, Rover, you're going to do the same thing again. The bucket is carried by Rover. The bucket is the subject, but it does not act. So we say the voice of the verb is passive. So that is all that is meant by the voice of a verb. If it is passive, the subject of the verb is acted upon. If the verb is in the active voice, the subject of the verb does the acting. There is one more common way of arranging verbs, by mood. For our purposes, there are three important moods of a verb. The first is the indicative mood. Rover is running. The indicative mood simply indicates. It says what is happening, or was happening, or will be happening. All right, Rover, you may stop. The second mood is imperative. Rover, run. This is the form you use to command. Rover, come. The third mood of verbs is called the subjunctive mood. This is used when you tell about something that might be, and it usually follows an if. If Rover were running now, he would get a bone. So we use verbs to show different moods. The indicative mood, which we use most of the time, the imperative mood, which we use in commands, and the subjunctive mood, which we use to say that something might be. Time can be indicated by the tense of a verb. In the simplest form, we think of things happening now. Rover sleeps. This is present tense. Things that happened in the past. Rover slept. This is past tense. The past, the present, and the future. Looking into a crystal ball, we might see that Rover will sleep. This is future tense. By adding what are called auxiliary or helping verbs, we can change each tense to a perfect tense. So in the past, we took a picture of Rover while he slept. But Rover had slept before. We added the auxiliary had to form the past perfect tense. For the present perfect tense, we use the present tense of the auxiliary. Rover sleeps now, but we know Rover has slept before. The present perfect tense really tells about something in the past. We use two auxiliaries for the future perfect tense. Rover will sleep until 6 o'clock. But if he sleeps until 7 o'clock, Rover will have slept through supper. This is the future perfect tense. So we have our most important tenses: the past, the present, the future. The past perfect, the present perfect, and the future perfect. These tenses of a verb are formed from what are called the principal parts of a verb. The first principal part of a verb, in this case sleep, forms the present tense of the verb and the future tense with an auxiliary. The second principal part of a verb, slept, forms the past tense. The third principal part, again slept, is used in forming all the perfect tenses. It almost always appears with an auxiliary verb. This form of the verb is called the past participle. And so we have the principal parts of the verb sleep. For every verb, there are three principal parts. And for most of the more common verbs, you'll want to memorize these parts. Remember that verbs can differ in voice, active and passive. You can use verbs in their various moods, according to your wishes. We say that an action verb is used transitively if the sentence includes a receiver of the action. We say it is used intransitively if the sentence does not include a receiver of the action. Finally, remember that verbs show action or state of being. These are the main ideas that will help us to understand verbs and how we use them.
Huh?